Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to repay my ex-husband for the college tuition he paid years ago? Original post. So, for some background, my ex-husband and I ended things over 20 years ago. When our son was 2, he stepped out. At the time, I was a stay-at-home mom and going to nursing school full-time. He was paying for my schooling. After he left, I asked him if he would keep paying for my school so I could finish with no debt. He agreed, saying it was the least he could do. A few months after that, he got his affair partner pregnant. Once she got pregnant, she demanded he stop paying for my schooling. It was a fifth of their income, and she said that money needed to go towards their new baby. He refused and kept paying for the remaining year and a half I had left. Over the years, I continued my education, and now I'm a nurse practitioner. I do well for myself, and I never remarried. On to the problem, my son called me and told me he and his wife are expecting. I was ecstatic. I asked if I could come over sometime during the weekend to give them some things, his favorite stuffed animal from childhood, a check, and some other small sentimental items. He said yes, so I went over earlier today. I came by and gave him everything, including a check for a few $1,000s for baby stuff, co-pays, the nursery, or anything else they might need. My son and his wife thanked me and said the money would be very helpful. My ex-husband and his wife came over a little while later. They surprised them with dinner and didn't know I'd be there, and saw the check on the counter. My ex's wife asked about it, and I said, oh well, I wanted to help out where I could. Everything's so expensive nowadays. I was really just trying to be polite, but I don't think it was any of her business. This woman had the audacity to say, well, maybe since you have all this money now, you can finally pay us back all that money you took when you went to college. I was dumbfounded. My ex has literally never brought up me paying him back. He's always said it was the least he could do for both me and our son. My ex has done very well for himself in his career. I didn't see how or why they'd need the money, so I asked them, do you guys need the money or something? My ex said no, and she said, of course not. It's about principle. I told her I will absolutely not be paying them back for college tuition from over 20 years ago, especially when she ended up in our marital home while I was living in a small apartment, barely making ends meet for years after I initially finished school. I've never been bitter or mean. I've always been civil since our kids are siblings, but my blood was boiling. I left shortly after that. According to my son, this has been a point of contention in their marriage. She's brought it up a few times over the years in front of him, and she's now insisting to him that he needs to convince me to finally pay back what they're owed. The biggest issue is that now the whole family is involved. I got calls from 3 separate family members saying I need to get over myself and just pay it back. So, am I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. He created a mess. Did he pay alimony? Did he take it off his taxes? We didn't have any court-ordered alimony or child support while I was in school. He just paid for the school since it was so expensive. I'm not sure if he took it off his taxes. He just gave me the money every month. Once the divorce was finalized shortly after I finished school, we made arrangements for child support but no alimony. Tell her it was the adultery tax, or that her husband was ensuring that his son would have a good life with either parent. Not the a-hole. This is exactly what my ex said. He wanted to make sure we could both afford things for our son. It was in a way a good investment for him because we went half on basically every activity he was in, his first car, and his college tuition. We definitely couldn't have done that if I only had a high school education. Now for the update. So first, I want to clarify some things. Yes, it was our marital home. We bought it after getting married. I didn't fight so hard for it in the divorce for a few reasons, mostly because she was borderline harassing me about how they needed the house for their growing family. I also didn't want to deal with a longer and more drawn-out divorce, which it would have been if I had fought for the house. Yes, he bought me out of the house. However, it really wasn't much as it was late 2007. Most of it went toward credit card debt anyway. Another thing, when he was paying for my schooling, we were still legally married. The divorce didn't finalize until after I graduated. There was no child support until after I graduated. There was never any alimony. I did live in the house while I was in school, and they lived in an apartment. He paid all those bills, including hers, after she got pregnant. So his finances were tight at the time. The family that called weren't my relatives. They were my ex's and his wife's relatives. I thought they were family. They've since been blocked. On to the update. I got off work yesterday to find a few missed calls from my son. When I called him back, he told me that his stepmom had now asked for the money from the check since it was almost the same amount they spent on my college. She said it was obvious I'd never pay my debts and that I would just give him, my son, more money anyway. I'm stunned. I'm pissed. I don't know what possessed her to think it was okay to ask my son for money intended for his family. I told my son to ignore her and that I'd handle it. Next, I called my ex. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again a few minutes later, same thing. So I reluctantly called my ex's wife and she answered immediately. I told her the three of us, my ex, her, and me, needed to meet first thing in the morning to discuss the debt. I was thinking this needed to happen in person with all three of us so there would be no confusion. She agreed. This morning we met at a coffee shop near my ex's work. As soon as they sat down, I said, "So, ex's wife, want to tell me why you think it's appropriate to ask my son for money?" My ex looked at her and said, "You asked my son for money?" She started going on about how she was only asking for the money they're owed, and she didn't ask for more than what was on the check. Then she said, "For years we struggled due to paying for your school. For years we couldn't afford a new car, a new house, or a nanny. My kids had to share a room." She kept going on about her struggles. I started to tune her out because I kept thinking, there's no way she's this deluded. It may have been inappropriate, but I laughed. I literally took on thousands in credit card debt to keep me and my son afloat, while my then-husband was shacking up with her and paying her bills. My ex looked at her and said, "What the heck, Sarah?" I added, "It's laughable that you think you're owed anything from when you were a mistress. We were married when he paid for my schooling. It's quite literally none of your business how he chose to spend his money. You had zero entitlement to his money until you said I do. And from what I recall, that wasn't until years after the divorce was even finalized. Do not contact me or my son about this money again. You will never see a dime from me." She rolled her eyes and got up to leave. My ex told her he was going to stay for a minute. After she was gone, he asked why I didn't just call him and tell him what was going on. Said he would have handled it and that it didn't have to go this far. I told him I did call, twice actually, and that's how we figured out she had blocked my number from his phone. So those of you who said she's just very insecure, you were absolutely correct. I told him that she involved his sister, cousin, and sister-in-law. That I got several calls and texts from them telling me I should just pay back my debt already. I told him she involved the family and then asked our son for money intended for his baby. She's crossed too many lines. He apologized and said he'll make sure she doesn't bother me about it again. We both left after that. My son told me he blocked her number and doesn't want her at his house until she apologizes. That's pretty much it for now. She is a very insecure person. She is jealous of you. She took your man. He is trash, she can have him. But you are thriving and she is jealous because you did what you had to do and are thriving. Her being his mistress didn't destroy you, so she is just holding on to this money thing. Good for you. Remember to always be petty. It's good for the soul. Glad you had the chat, and I hope this annoyance is over for your and congrats on becoming a grandma. Yep, always be petty. It's good for the soul. This seems like a weird power trip from her. You're probably right. I hope ex and mistress get divorced. They finally deserve a happily ever after, and more importantly, your son doesn't deserve to have that psycho around him. Yeah, honestly, the person I feel the worst for here is my son. He grew up with a woman who hated his mom for no good reason, and apparently always held a grudge over me getting an education. I can't imagine after what she did recently, he'd want her super involved as a grandma. I don't think that'll go down well. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to sign a postnup after 20 years of marriage? My 39 female husband, 40 male, and I have been together for 25 years and married for 20. We don't have any children. We got together in high school and married soon after graduating. I went to college and earned a business degree, then got a corporate job while he attended college and tried to figure out what he wanted to do professionally. A few years after I started my corporate job, I had saved enough for a down payment on a house. I was able to save thanks to living with my in-laws rent-free for 3 years. I purchased a property, and since my husband didn't have any income at the time, he was left off the loan, and the bank required him to sign a quitclaim deed. After 6 years in community college, my husband finally decided to quit school and focus on his freelance art career, which brought in some income. He also got a part-time job to help with his expenses. By his expenses, I mean mainly gas, personal spending, and eating out. I've been the primary provider for our household, paying the mortgage, utilities, the majority of entertainment/travel expenses, all pet expenses, we have 2 dogs and a cat, and groceries. He lost his part-time job during COVID and also suffered a back injury that left him unable to return to work, so he now relies solely on his freelance art, which isn't always a reliable source of income. A few years ago, he inherited 2 properties from relatives. He wanted to build rental units on one of them, but when he didn't qualify for a loan, I stepped in and co-signed. The plan was to take out equity and use the money to fund the construction. He agreed to put me on the title since the loan was under both our names. I helped him deal with the architect and city hall to obtain permits. I was heavily involved during the pre-construction phase, and we agreed he would handle the contractor. Even then, he asked me to step in occasionally and attend inspections with him. When the loan money ran out, I contributed some of my own funds to finish the project. He said he would pay me back, but 2 years later, I haven't been fully reimbursed. Before we got the loan, he asked if I would sign a document stating that I had no claim to the property. At the time, I didn't think much of it and hadn't realized how involved I'd actually become. After construction was completed, I was in charge of finding a property management company, and before that, I was the main contact for the rental listings while we searched for tenants, because he said he didn't have the patience to deal with people. A couple of years after the construction, he brought up the idea of a postnup again. After giving it some thought, I agree that I don't have a claim to the property solely under his name. However, I do believe I have a claim to at least the additions we made to the second property. He says I shouldn't benefit from his family's inheritance. That makes me feel like trash, as if everything I did to help him build those units meant nothing. He says that my refusal to sign the postnup makes him not trust me. But a postnup was never an issue when he didn't have any property, and all we had was our home, which is under my name. He argues that because he signed a quitclaim deed, he doesn't have a claim to our residence, but that's not how it works in a community property state. I know a postnup would also benefit me. It would protect my residence, my 401k, and any potential future alimony payments. But the distrust is so hurtful that, at this point, I would rather divorce. I wouldn't touch his properties, but I would demand that he refinance the loan to remove me from the rental property. I just don't think I can get over the distrust and the loss of self-respect that would come with signing a postnup after 20 years of marriage. It just makes me feel like such a doormat. What would you do in this situation? Am I thinking about this wrong and not seeing his side? Am I being inconsiderate, given that the rental income would be his lifeline if we divorced? Just a side note, there are no suspicions of infidelity or anything like that. The thing is, I still love him very much, and I know he loves me too. I just don't understand where all this mistrust is coming from. Do not sign anything that doesn't recognize and reward your contributions to the property you are invested in. You've been supporting this man for 20 years, he owes you. The thought that he's now so concerned with protecting his assets is sketchy. Honestly, I would have to wonder if he isn't getting his affairs in order to divorce you. Exactly. After 20 years, you deserve protection too. This sudden shift feels off. Trust your gut. He never fully trusted her. He just now has something of value. And the kicker is he didn't earn it. He inherited it. That's the only reason this hasn't come up earlier. Hope he should actually get a lawyer, because a postnuptial could benefit her. If it's negotiated, then dump his sad sorry ass. He's a very selfish man. It just never came out, because he was a very broke selfish man, not the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my boyfriend about his daughter starting her period and giving her my doll? I'm 29 female and my boyfriend is 34 male. He has an 11-year-old daughter with his ex. He usually only has his daughter 3 weekends a month during the school year, but his ex is currently on vacation in Japan, so his daughter has been with him for the past 2 weeks. The weather has been really warming up where we live, and one of my friends opened her pool for the year this weekend. My boyfriend's daughter loves swimming. I told her on Thursday that we could go swimming on Saturday, and she was ecstatic. Saturday rolls around, and she stayed in bed all morning, looking miserable. My boyfriend took her temperature, and she didn't have a fever. She just told him she doesn't feel like going anywhere and asked to be left alone. It didn't seem like she was sick, and she had been so excited about swimming earlier in the week, so I knocked on her door later in the day Saturday to ask if something happened at school that upset her, or if there was anything going on she wanted to talk about. She initially told me no, but she was tearing up. Then she made me promise not to tell her dad, which I agreed to. She told me she had started her period, was in a lot of pain, and was using toilet paper as a makeshift pad. Even with my assurances that starting your period is nothing to be embarrassed about, she still didn't want me to tell her dad. I ran to the store to get her some different pad options, a heating pad, and some chocolate. As promised, I didn't tell her dad. I just said I was running to the store to grab some snacks for myself and his daughter. She continued to have bad cramps even with the heating pad, so I gave her 2 My Doll tablets. About 90 minutes later, she was feeling a lot better. I gave her 2 additional My Doll tablets when she woke up the next morning with cramps. My boyfriend's ex returned from vacation late in the day on Sunday, yesterday. His daughter had no issues with her mom knowing about starting her period, and if her mom had been in town, she would have called her. The only reason I got involved is because her mom wasn't there, and she didn't want her dad to know. I knew she would tell her mom once she was back, so it was just a day and a half of me helping and not telling my boyfriend. I figured that if her mom thought he should know, then her mom should be the one to tell him, as I had made a promise to his daughter not to tell. This morning, my boyfriend's ex told him what happened, and he called me after speaking to her. He's furious with me for not telling him about what he called a medical condition, and for giving his daughter over-the-counter medications without his approval. I told him I wanted his daughter to be able to trust me, so she'll be comfortable coming to me in the future with things she might be embarrassed to tell her dad about. I also told him that if something had been going on that required medical attention, I absolutely would have told him, but this was just her starting her period. He's still mad, mainly about me giving her the My Doll. I don't think I'm the a-hole here, but I also have no kids of my own, and I'm starting to doubt myself, because maybe, from the perspective of people who are parents, I really messed up in this situation. Now for the comments. My mom insisted my stepdad had to be told, and he teased me by shouting it out the van windows to strangers, while I screamed and cried for him to stop. I'm 45 and haven't forgiven either of them. Not the a-hole. I am so sorry that happened to you. That sounds dreadful. I am literally livid on your behalf after reading that. Not the a-hole. I had a similar scenario with my ex-husband, except my stepdaughter was able to call her mom from school, who then called me to fill me in and ask me to go over any questions she had about the products I'd already stashed in a just-in-case basket in her closet. In that call, her mom said she didn't want her dad or brothers to know yet, so I agreed not to tell them. All good. 3 months later, my ex was in my stepdaughter's bathroom and saw her supplies. He was hurt no one had told him, so I just talked to him about the feelings she was likely experiencing. I thought he understood, but then he point-blank asked her about it at dinner in front of her brothers. Only then did he understand. She turned bright red, started crying, and ran away as her brothers taunted her. It seriously pissed me off all around.